Hi, Emmanuel. How are you? I'm Eileen Frueh, and I'm here to talk to you this morning about a really important topic to me, which is having a faithful response to people with substance use disorder. And I have a very special guest with me here today, who is Bishop Mark Bourlakas of our Episcopal Diocese of Southwestern Virginia. And we decided to get together and talk because we know that so many people's lives have been touched by this issue. Many of you know that I work in the field of HIV policy and communications. There's a big overlap between people who have HIV and whose lives are affected by injection drug use. And like you, I have two very, very close friends, like family to me, whose adult children have substance use disorder and who have been in and out of treatment. And I know that that's an issue that probably all of you probably know somebody or are very, closely like one step away from people because it's so common in the United States now. So Bishop, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I just wanted to start by asking you about convention, about a resolution that was passed at the last convention, calling us for a faithful response to substance use disorder, and what you can tell us about that resolution and sort of how it came to be.
Yes, thank you for having me. So that resolution has its origin in the opioid crisis that in our diocese, being an Appalachian diocese, is sort of the epicenter, especially in the far southwest part of our diocese, where that crisis has really taken a toll on the communities and the people who live there. Anybody who hasn't seen Dope Sick with Michael Keaton in it should, because it gives a good not only how you just introduced the topic, but the opioid crisis and pharmaceutical companies who sort of preyed on people. So we wanted to first address how do we respond with love and with care and without prejudice, but also what are the ways that we tangibly can make a connection on the ground. So we do have 4 parishes in Appalachia, in Norton, Big Stone Gap, Tazewell, St. Paul's, and those churches hub around our Appalachian Service Center, Grace House on the Mountain. So we're doing things through there through those parishes and the people in those parishes to reach out and help families and people who are experiencing the ravages or fallout or hardships connected with drug use, especially OxyContin and opioids.
Are there things in other areas of the diocese that you have seen, like areas that aren't necessarily Appalachian but are a little bit more urban? Are there things that you're seeing happening there?
Well, I certainly don't want us to believe that the opioid crisis or OxyContin is confined to Appalachia. It's really everywhere, and it affects people of all classes. And so people have their teenage children have an injury and then were prescribed some kind of a painkiller and then get addicted to it and have some disastrous, even fatal consequences in some cases. So I think the prevalence of those particular drugs is pervasive. It's just that, like I said earlier, that's just the epicenter in Appalachia. I think there's lots of other kinds of drug use, that is not confined to any particular geographic region, but as a result of people's either depression or trauma or whatever's in their life story that has them turning to some kind of substance that they abuse.
Are there specific things that the resolution says, like here are some ideas of what you can do, or suggestions that you might have that people as individuals or us as a parish or anybody who might be listening to us on Wednesday Words can do?
Yeah, the resolution is a slightly more general thing that encourages our congregations to to be involved in ways of healing and encouraging, especially people who, again, remember it's a church resolution, so it's focused on how might we help first, and I don't mean first in terms of order, but first, people in our parishes that might be struggling, or they or their family members, as you said earlier, with some kind of substance abuse. What might we do to reach out and form support groups, and ways of helping? And each parish would have to ask questions about, what are we doing in our community, or how are we paying attention to this in our community? What do we know about our community? I mean, each parish's context is local. And then that would be the second thing, is how do we then, in love for a neighbor, maybe figure out what might be appropriate in our context. Where in Appalachia, just we got a large grant of $10,000 from Episcopal Relief and Development, just to help people with, again, the things that, if you get your power shut off, or things happen because of the lack of employment and things, and some of those things intersect with drug use in the family or something. So in those parishes, it's like, we're just trying to help people get on with their daily living. In other parishes, you might have some people willing to form a support group. You might have people that are willing to help families who had a member that maybe died
Right.
from drug use,
Right.
those kinds of things. So I think the resolution encourages a variety of responses, and just sort of calls our hearts in that direction. The reason I mentioned Dope Sick at the beginning too is, I think it is important for us to sensitize ourselves through some kind of conversation or dialogue. So I think the first thing sometimes is, just like with issues around racism or any other issue, if we don't sit as a group of people and try to understand, like, what's going on here, how do we feel about it, what might we do, we move kind of quickly just to kind of coming up with some action instead of. And so I think it's important to form a study group, and the Dope Sick movie is just one example. You could watch it over a series and ask about, how does this affect us, how does it affect our community?
I really want to encourage everybody, if they haven't seen it, to go back to our YouTube channel. Alison Bernaking did a Wednesday Words 2 or 3 weeks ago about her own work with people with substance use disorder. And she talked a lot about stigma and using our language, the correct language to use, which a lot of us don't know and are uncomfortable to ask, and really greeting people with the understanding that this is a terrible disease, and that we can have a loving response that way.
I think that's key, is that people tend to focus on the symptom or what's happened. This person is now using drugs, and make some kind of, again, as I said earlier, some kind of prejudgment about who they are as a person, and see it as some kind of moral failing, instead of going back in love to what might be how that person, or that person's family got involved with these things. And they're, when you get down to the level of the person's story or a family story, they're heartbreaking things that have happened. And again, some of them have some genetic, like you say, some disease and things that can't be helped. And other things are the result of a combination of some kind of, as I said earlier, some kind of a trauma, some kind of a family, matrix issue that then has them, whether it's alcohol or any other kind of drug.
Right. Exacerbated by COVID.
Oh, sure. Sure. Loneliness, loss of hope, things that cause people to say, again, to start kind of small with something like, I'm just drinking a little bit more than usual or something. And then before they know it, they can be caught up in something else.
That's right. Well, thank you very much for talking to us. You're going to be visiting us soon. So
that's right.
Yeah, we're all very much looking forward to that, where we can greet you in person.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Any way that I appreciate your having these conversations, any ways that we can lift up each other as brothers and sisters, children of God. We are doing good work whenever we, realize that God loves us all.
Good. All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.